Cuba is clearly experiencing a transition, but a transition to what? And how can the international community help? For an inside perspective, I spoke with Dr. Otaviano Canuto, Executive Director at the International Monetary Fund.
I believe there is a transition taking place. The normalization of relationships with the U.S. is a landmark in the sense that it allows for Cuba to change its political and therefore economic relationships with the whole region and the world.
And what do you think of some of the economic reforms that have already been underway in Cuba?
They are a step forward in that regard. The fact is, Cuba has reached such a remarkable social results, but now in order to keep the pace of social improvement, Cuba would benefit a lot from economic growth. But in order to raise the economic growth rate, Cuba certainly might have to set up its economic policy framework in a way that could make the country attractive to capital inflows. And through capital inflows, Cuba could benefit from technology transfer and ultimately through raising investments in infrastructure. And that would be a bonus on a country, for a country that already enjoys a remarkable good base in terms of health and education.
And do you think Cuba is open to making these kind of reforms?
It's up to the country, but every signal points out to that direction. The issue is the pace, but that's the country's call, ultimately.
Mm-hmm. But you think that they are reforming?
I would say that all the signals are in the direction of a movement, departing from the old-style command and control economy towards one in which the price signals have a greater role in allocating resource.
What do you think is the major next step you'd like to see from Cuba?
Certainly reforms of the economic policy framework in general. For instance, overcoming the multiplicity of exchange rates that characterize the regime today. Because with multiple exchange rates, in order to be enforced, such a regime is inimical to market forces. It has to impede, it has to curb the free action of economic agents. So certainly Cuba's management, as well as its attractiveness as a destination for capital, would require some sort of rationalization of its exchange rate regime.
Now, at the moment, the multilaterals are not active in Cuba. Do you think that what could their involvement, what could they bring to the table to help Cuba attain its potential?
More importantly than money, I would say this transfer of technology, or this transfer of knowledge, of broad knowledge. And by the way, it's the country's call to manifest some intention. And then there is a relatively simple process that can be put in place that yields at the end the Cuba rejoining, for instance, if it wants, an institution like the IMF. By the way, Cuba was among the founder countries of the institution until it decided to depart in 1964.
And what do you think it would take to create a successful relationship between Cuba and the multilateral organizations?
Trust, transparency, and ownership of reforms by Cuba, because ownership is fundamental to any reform. That's a long-standing lesson that we have learned regarding reforms anywhere in the world.
Dr. Canuto, thank you so much for your time.
A pleasure.